How much do you think this is going to be worth for Volkswagen, and when does it wind up getting credit for this massive amount of investment it's going to put into EVs?
Well, look, at the moment, people like the stock because of the narrative, being all in, making battery cells, dedicated plants and platform. So that's sort of the menu of the day. Really, the question also that Matt has asked Herbert Diess earlier on is, how do you finance that transition? What happens to all your existing ICE capacity? How do you manage doubling up all your costs? I think that's really the very, very big question. It's clear that auto companies are massively undervalued. They're all moving up since basically late summer last year. I think it will continue, actually. But Volkswagen is taking massive bets at the moment. And there's a big homework task to restructure the legacy business at the same time.
Arndt, it's Guy. But is this the moment? Is this the moment that we see the re-rating of VW? The stock has been up really sharply today. It's been on a good run already, but it's really supercharged, turbocharged that today. Are we going to continue to see this? Do you think this is a one-off moment, or, as you say, this just carries on and on and on?
Hey, Guy, I think it's really, we're in a journey of re-rating. I mean, I called last year a big note, the reincarnation of the car. But this year, I said it's the year of the multiple for everything autos. I think all these multiples are look, these companies are valued to go out of business in 4 to 5 years if these cash flows are sustainable. And I think that's wrong. And people are learning that the new product and the new technologies that are coming out of these companies are really competitive. So, you know, why shouldn't these companies trade on 10, 12 times earnings? I mean, they would still trade at a massive discount to the market, but they would, you know, they would recover some of the derating. And I think that's what's happening, and that's what's going to continue.
Arndt, Wedbush, Dan Ives over at Wedbush said that Volkswagen is still viewed as the most likely EV partner for Apple that would fit into the narrative that Tesla is going to become a software company. What do you think about that?
Well, firstly, it's clear that Volkswagen is open for collaboration on the EV platform front. They're collaborating with Ford. They're open for other players. So I would not rule them out. And VW has a whole big homework to do on digital integration and digital transformation. I personally see BMW as a better partner because there are stronger brand synergies, stronger, you know, manufacturing capabilities. Certainly at BMW are the same. They're also global, and the companies are already partnering on quite a few technologies. We'll need to see whether Apple really wants to partner with anyone in the auto space, whether they really want to make the Apple car. But if you ask me, I would say that Munich would be a better partner than Wolfsburg for Apple.
You bring up the issue of paying for all this, and Matt brought it up as well. They've got Porsche. Porsche's worth a lot of money, and you do wonder, even if they were to sell a fraction of it onto the open market, how big an opportunity that would be. You've been talking about this for a long time. Is now the moment to pull the trigger on a Porsche IPO, because it would just give them the financial firepower necessary to make this all happen?
Look, at the moment, Volkswagen is generating more than 10 billion of free cash flow a year, right? At the moment, the pressure isn't huge, but it's also true that Volkswagen has 44 billion of pension provisions on its balance sheet that are not really funded with cash. Volkswagen has 15 billion of hybrid capital sitting there that needs to be refinanced. So there are significant needs as well. I personally still really believe it's a major opportunity to bring Porsche back to the market, whether it's 20 or 25%. It would obviously pay for a huge amount of the transition. It would take away the fear that the Volkswagen might not be able to finance it. So equity holders would applaud. Every Porsche employee would applaud. I do not see strong reasons, leaving aside emotional reasons, to keep Porsche at 100% within Volkswagen. I do think it's a time, maybe not this year, but maybe next year.
So what's the pushback to that? Because, I mean, that makes perfect sense, particularly when this shift to EVs is extraordinarily expensive, and we've seen partnerships all across the board with these OEMs to try and, like, get the funding to do it. What's the argument against it?
Look, I think the Porsche families are very attached to the asset, and they fully control the asset. They control 52% of the voting rights in Volkswagen. I just think it needs a lot of convincing across, you know, this very large family that this is the right strategic move. I think there's more openness amongst the family members, but it probably still needs a bit of massaging. But that really is that's why I'd say it's an emotional resistance rather than anything factual in my eyes.
Arndt, I just want to check the price target. You're at 190 now. The stock has absolutely surged today. In terms of how investors want to play this, what's the right strategy in terms of looking at an auto sector that you say is massively undervalued, that has the potential to re-rate over a long period of time? How do you play it? Which companies look good? Which companies don't? Is it the OEMs? Is it the supply chain? Where am I going to get this kind of the biggest bang for my buck in terms of a re-rating that may not take us to Tesla multiples, but takes us to better multiples?
Yeah, Guy, I'm a big fan of the OEMs because they're just so cheap and they have so much opportunity, whether it's self-help, pricing, cost, and everything, whether it's proving the market wrong. I mean, the product is actually competitive that's coming out of the OEMs. So I think there's more to gain with the OEMs. I also think a lot of the cost pressure and the structural change in the supply chain is making life much more difficult for tier one suppliers moving forward. Now, which stocks to play that with? If people want to play the big sum of the parts dream, the big EV dream, then Volkswagen has its merits, clearly. If you want to talk about a company that's really transitioning today, getting the work done today, it's certainly Daimler. If you want to play something that's a bit, out of fashion at the moment, it's a BMW. I like that. BMW is going to consolidate their China operations next year. My numbers are 30, 40% above the street. It's a bit of a hidden pearl out there. Yeah, but these are good stocks. I think all of them will move substantially higher. Volkswagen, we need to see what happens next.
Just to come back to what Alix mentioned a moment ago, the Wedbush comment on partnering with Apple. If it was BMW, how big an impact would that have on a share price? Just how big a one-day effect do you think you would see if suddenly we all walk into the office and you've got BMW and Apple on the same page? What's that worth, do you think?
Look, it's very hard to quantify. I think the stock would be up substantially because you make someone who's a potential threat to you to make that, player a partner, right? You make one of the biggest brand in everything digital. You make them your partner. I would need to run the numbers, but I think, let me just guess. I would say BMW would be up 10, 20% on the day at least.
Wow. We have a viewer question, Arndt, so I want to run that by you. Ford is issuing $2 million worth of bonds today. What about the players that are still stuck in the past?
Well, I think we will see an auto industry where you have companies that still live in the old world. They would sell, pickup trucks and combustion engine, vehicles to some people in the US and some other regions of the world. But I don't think they've invested enough money, or they even have the money to spend significantly to shape the future. So you will simply have companies that can't compete in certain areas, and it's a substantially growing area of the market. So clearly, two-class society of the haves and haves not.
What sort of you're really upsetting Matt Miller here, by the way. I'd just like to point that out. You and he get on quite well. He loves his pickup trucks. He wants a combustion engine. He wants a nice noise. I'm just going to point that one out in case Matt's watching, because I know he does. What sort of time frame are we talking here? Because Diess was talking about 2 cycles. A cycle is roughly 7 years. Are we talking a 14, 15-year cycle here?
Oh, we absolutely do. Look, Matt will continue to put his bike on the back of a pickup and have a lot of fun, cruising around for quite a while. But look, it doesn't have to be a V8 gas guzzling engine. It can be a hybrid powertrain, right? That's substantially more fuel efficient. It might still, make some noise. Matt can tune the noise up and down. It's all, driven by tech. So I don't think Matt has to worry too much.